Alright, how's it going? So, today we're going to talk about introverted intuition, and that's what we're talking about today, okay? Now, to talk about NI, we have to talk about, okay, this is for INFJs only, I should say that. This is mostly for how NI affects INFJs. Okay, and to talk about NI, we're going to have to talk about the other functions as well, because that's like, it's like talking about a balloon without talking about the air inside it and the properties of the air. That's pretty much, if I just described NI, it'd be like the outside of the balloon. So that's what we're gonna do today. Okay. Oh, stay. Okay. Oh man, so many distractions out here. There's like cats and. Okay. So, introverted intuition, right? Well, it's basically what INFJs are. The top function is the dominant function. It's the master function. It is the reason. It is what we go around doing. Okay. So, if INFJ, you're going around walking. It's wondering how all these things make a cat. You see the cat walking around on the street. It's wondering what factors made that cat come into walking there. It's a very it's very inquisitive function, but it's like a detective function. It's one of the main detective functions, and I've noticed like the best detectives are usually because my dad was a police officer. He's a police detective, and he developed a strong NI because of that, and he has NI, and I mean extroverted intuition can also be used in that way, but introverted intuition is more effective because, well, I'll probably get into this later, but introverted intuition, extroverted intuition, they do kind of do the same things, except in extroverted intuition, there's way more interference. Actually I have a picture here. No, let me draw this picture. Okay. Okay. Actually, forget. I'm not gonna draw the picture, but they can do the extroverted intuition. It draws a million connections between one thing, and just like you have one little point here, and just multiple points. And if you have 2 points that's doing that with, some of the connection can hit between the 2 points, where an INFJ. Introverted intuition, you have one center point here that you're looking for, and you have all these other things that you're not really thinking about, that are just coming in, that are and that are making this one point. So it's much more efficient and much less clutter than having an ENFJ with, or a ENFP with a ton of points, and you have all this interference, and maybe you get one connection. So, wow, I'm getting off topic. Okay, so, but that kind of describes how INFJs use their intuition. They try to get that one idea. It's not that mystical. I don't know why people say it's kind of hard to describe at first, but once you get a good grasp of what it's trying to do, it's really not that hard to describe. Now, in INFJ, we have TI, right? Well, here's how this works. The introverted functions in a person usually work in tandem together. They complement each other. Of course, the dominant one's going to be the master of all your functions, but the other introverted function is going to work together. So we have TI. So TI and NI, I like to call it the theory, the dual. I call it the dual function. Oh wait, no, I call those the. When you combine those two, that's basically like the theory. That's basically the theory builder, the theory building functions. Those two together create a nice, well-defined ability to create theories. And so INFJs are gonna love to create theories. They're gonna love that because the way that works is, since you have introverted intuition, right? If you have your TI coming in, TI cares about difference between TI and TE is TI cares about your personal logic and doesn't want to quantify it. TE loves organizing things on the outside, which is why TE is usually like math, because you can organizing information on the outside world. TIs, especially non-dominant TIs, don't love that as much because we care just about not quantifying logic on the outside, but just coming up with a logical solution in our head to help us with our problems or our theories, not so everyone else can see, which is what TIs love. So TI and NI work very well together we just care about making this theory, and the theory is what other people get to see from our brain. And so our logic, we have this theory from our NI, this idea, and our logic works on the points that our NI doesn't really work on. And TI, if you learn how to use it, you have these points out. You have the main point out here. That's your NI idea. You have all these points out here, and the TI can come along and like, oh, let me look at this, and then I'm just gonna go up here. I'm gonna look at that, and I'm gonna see what's the logic behind this going to that, this going to that. So it can pick apart and create a very well-defined theory that explains where this came from. So if you don't develop that well, it can be mystical, because then you have this idea in the middle and you're like, I don't know where this came from. What? I don't understand what these mean. I'm just gonna your TI might just focus on this and not go up here. So you have to learn to use your TI as a tool. So depending on the INFJs will vary completely, because depending on how well you developed your functions are and what you like, what you're going to do is completely different. But since we all have NI, we're all going to have that idea. Now, how good the idea is based on how well you have your TI made up. So that explains that. Now, we have extrovert feeling in our second function. I'm gonna tell you when this comes into play a lot. This affects our happiness a lot, because what extroverted feeling really is, I mean, all those sites they're not very good at telling you what it really is. How it really affects INFJ is extroverted feeling wants to express your theories to other people. Extroverted feeling is the organizing of other people around you. It's extroverted feeling. Feeling and thinking are judging functions, which means they're organizing functions. So extroverted feeling, organize, extroverted, the outside world. So it wants to organize the outside world, it wants feedback from the outside world in a feeling and organizing manner. So you have an INFJ, right? It's got this nice theory and stuff, but guess what? No one cares about it. The INFJ is going to be completely unhappy, because one of the second function is extroverted feeling, and it wants constant feedback, it wants constant organization of people. So your brain is programmed to do that, is what I believe. And I believe eventually we'll find that out in neuroscience and stuff. That'll eventually be discovered, but I think we're a long ways off from that, because not many people are working on personality, they're working on diseases and stuff. And I think I just had that Obama thing about mapping the brain, and of course that will lead to the discovery of personality. So we'll get there eventually. Neuroscience. I believe neuroscience will find a definite connection in our personalities, and in the future we're going to be able to use that. Like, it's going to be a definite thing where we can map our brain and be like, oh, that's what kind of personality you have. Anyways, so INFJs. This is why INFJs are loved to be psychologists, because it fits them perfectly. I don't want to be a psychologist. Well, I've thought about it, but it depends on what the INFJ likes. I was really into science, less into people, but I still need feedback. Extroverted feeling doesn't mean you like people. It doesn't mean that at all. It means you like organizing people and like their feedback. It doesn't mean you like them. It's complicated, but so telling you why INFJs like to be psychologists will help you understand this, because say, you have an INFJ, right? And so what a psychologist does is you're in a one-on-one setting and you create a theory for the person. What a psychologist does is they create a theory about the person's life, and they're able to tell the person right then and there which is perfect for FE. So you're doing both things that INFJ would ever want. You're creating theories and then telling a person and then getting feedback right away. That is perfect. That's why INFJs are one of the will probably love no matter who kind of INFJ you are, you'll probably love being a psychologist because it perfectly fits our functions. Now you notice I'm not talking about the last function. That doesn't really do much. It doesn't really, I mean, it does affect our lives, but it doesn't really affect our happiness on a grand scale. But if you ignore it, it can. Let's say we have extroverted sensing. That's kind of, well, it works, extroverted functions work together, introverted functions work together. So it kind of works with our extroverted feeling, and it may want to, see people exercise or get that people just. It's such a minor function though. It's only like 5% of our personality from what I've observed. It's so minor. It's gonna cause you to want to do things though, so you have to watch out for that. Because if you go online, you'll see things about the inferior function messing up your life and stuff, which it can. You just can't ignore it. So we have extroverted sensing. It doesn't really affect our happiness too much, and I wouldn't base anything on it other than do a little bit to not ignore it too. So it won't cause you to stress. But it's hard to say, oh, what job could also use the SE, because it's such a small part of us. You really can't base your life on it at all. I mean, you really can't. And I mean, it helps us absorb information for our NI a little bit. So it's kind of, it's not like I said. There's perceiving functions and judging functions, and SE is a perceiving function. So it's not really going to want to organize anything. So it's kind of less volatile than, say, if you had an inferior judging function, which you kind of mess things up a little more, I believe. But since you just have it, all you have to do is feed it a little information in a while, and it may cause you to want to absorb lots of information. Be like, oh, I want to do this, and I want to do this fast. I just want to. If you're in a kind of, if you've ignored it for a while and you haven't done anything like physical, you haven't done anything like, have a lot of stimuli, you might kind of be like, you might feel a little unhappy because that function wants to do things. It wants to get out and it wants to feed itself, and your brain's like, hey, why am I? You have a little program in your brain, a little part of the brain that's like, hey, I need something here. I'm dying here. I need something. I need to get out. So it may cause you some, stir to get out of the house every once in a while. But I'm not gonna talk about that much right here. You can find more about that online. I'm not really want to talk about that. So let me tell you more about a little bit about INFJs. INFJs are more solo scientists. They since they don't have extroverted thinking, they don't like to organize their thoughts. And they don't, that's not the right word. They don't want to organize just the logic process. They like to keep that inside their head and just show you this theory, which is why INFJs in science are kind of iffy, because the basic scientific theory and scientific method praises extrovert thinking. It wants you to quantify your logic so other people can understand that. The INFJ brain, when you try to do that, the INFJ brain is like, why am I doing this? This isn't right. I don't like this. This doesn't make me feel happy. Like, the INFJ brain doesn't process that well. It doesn't get it. And it's kind of something. It just doesn't. It will unsettle us, and you can't really say until we fully understand brain and how the neurons, and not the neurons, but I mean how the functions in our programs in our brain work. I can't really tell you why we get this uneasy feeling other than the basic of if we're trying to do an extrovert thinking thing, our brain's gonna be like, this doesn't fit right with my structure. So this is a main problem with INFJs in science, because you have to be very careful what science you go into and how you do it. So science may be good if you're like a medical scientist and you're like, oh, you're getting these theories and you're helping out people and getting tons of feedback. That's great. But say to become that, like a medical doctor, you have to go through a PhD. Now that's a big problem. PhDs are not INFJ friendly because you're not getting personal feedback when you're getting that PhD. It doesn't make any sense. You're not. This is a huge problem in the educational system because you have INFJs who say want to do this job that will be like them, but they have to go through the PhD, which is just no feedback. You're just doing research in science, and you get feedback at the end, but to get there is extremely tiring for the INFJ brain. It's very depressing. If the INFJ brain will not feel happy going through a PhD. They might feel happy once they get it, but they will not. It will really mess up their life going through a PhD program, which is a huge problem. And because a lot of skilled INFJs should go into highly skilled upper level jobs, but to get there, it's not set up right for INFJs. It's very difficult for us to get there, which is a problem with math, because math is a TE thing also, with no FE in math. Unless you're tutoring math or teaching math, it's very hard if you're just, because no one cares, because they say you have a job and they want you to calculate something, and they're like, oh, so tell me about how you did this math. And they're like, no, just give me the answer. It doesn't suit the INFJ, because they want, oh, just write your steps out, and because the extrovert feeling wants to organize people into doing something, wants feedback, wants to organize people. Math, you're not really. Just like, oh, just give me these numbers. That's not. You don't have direct contact organizing people. So math is going to be very hard because it's not like, oh, extroverted thinking. If you had extroverted thinking, math would be like, oh yeah, I'm organizing this information. This feels so good. This feels right. INFJ, I want to organize people. Why am I organizing numbers? This short term that can be okay because you can see the long term goal of organizing the numbers, but long term, if you're doing that for a while, that's going to be very hard on INFJ. You're not going to be happy. That's why you have to be careful about sciences, because I'm going into geology and I picked that very carefully because I love science. I didn't. That's why I wasn't really drawn to psychology and how many INFJs are going to differ, because I was drawn to science from a young age, physics and stuff. But then I got to doing physics, like, this doesn't feel right. It doesn't make it. It's very depressing. It's not that I can't do math, not that math is hard. It's just that it doesn't work in my brain. It doesn't feel right. It doesn't make me happy, and it's hard to think properly when your brain's like, this isn't right. And so you have to be very careful. And I'm going into geology because well, you get to create theories. I'm not going to go for a PhD. I could maybe, but it depends on what kind of program, what was involved in the program. But say a geology, it's kind of one of the less harder sciences. I mean, not harder, but less hard logic and more people friendly. Because say you're a geologist, you're not really doing so much math. You're just like, oh, well, I think this layer of the rock did this, and you can go out and adventure with people. And it's like you usually have constant contact with people because you're out in the field, and you just have a little bit of constant contact with people. So INFJs who are introverted, they can still be introverted, but they can have constant feedback with people, and saying, you can drill here, mine here. It's a nice feedback system for geology. Now, say you were going into physics. That's hard, because say you're going into NASA, you're not giving feedback constantly. You're like, oh, okay, unless you're the operator talking to the people on the space shuttle, and you're just calculating the trajectory. Well, there's a lot of people counting the trajectory of the space shuttle. So your work isn't going to be noted that much. It's not going to be like, oh, you did this. That's great. But now it's going to cause this to organize our people. I mean, your small bit of information isn't going to have. You're just going to be doing information, and not really going to be directly involved with organizing a people or feedback, which is a huge problem. INFJ would be miserable in that setting. Now, some physics could be good. Say, cosmology, where you're constantly giving speeches. Uh, where you're a well-known cosmologist and you're constantly giving speeches about the universe, that's INFJ friendly. Now, what's not is getting to that point, because you have to do a lot of you have to do a lot of lonely science where you're not giving feedback to people, where people don't care what you're doing, and you're not organizing people to do things. That hurts. That's not INFJ friendly. So, but perhaps you could do physics in the right setting. Say maybe if you just got a bachelor's degree, but that's kind of doesn't really work with physics that well. If you're going into the physics field, but yeah, PhD in physics, very difficult for INFJ. I really don't know how INFJ would do it in this day and age. Maybe, like before, I bet you, like, supposedly Niels Bohr is INFJ, if you go to those websites that say who's an INFJ. Well, maybe, I don't know, I feel like the setting was different back in the old days. We didn't have this, it was more personal, college, less people went to college, and it was more, Niels Bohr, I read up on him, and his father was a scientist, and so he kind of had connections, and so he was constantly doing things with people. You're not just, it wasn't just one person and a setting of 100,000, and you weren't being ignored. You were having a constant contact with people and showing ideas and changing ideas, where nowadays it's kind of lonely. You're just a stranger in a group of cajillion people, and no one cares about you, which is INFJ. The INFJs love to care, and they love people to care. And it's a huge problem for us. So this video was just supposed to be about NI, but like I said, to talk about NI, you have to talk about the other functions. Actually, no, I could have definitely simplified that. I'm an idiot. But so NI, what it does, I could have just said that in a couple minutes. It doesn't take much. NI, all it does is gives us our idea. It's our dominant function. It requires everything else to want to get an idea. It wants our FE to organize people, but it wants to be about that idea. Our TI wants to help that NI idea. Our SE wants to absorb information for that NI idea. So NI is our main function, and it's very inquisitive. It's very detective-like. It just wants to solve that one idea and wants to understand the world simplistically and not get into all this like an ENFP would, extrovert intuition, where you get all these branching ideas and you're okay having all these ideas floating around. INFJ wants to know the conclusion, and it wants it settled with. So that's our talk about INFJs. This was a very long video. I'm sorry about that. I should have had some more visual aids that would have kept it more entertaining. Sometimes I do, but I didn't. Okay, now I'm rambling. So, more videos soon, maybe. Gonna make one about, I think someone wanted me to make a video about TI and FE, how to manage them, how they intertwine. So I might do that, because there's a lot of misconception about that. Misconception that I believe. These are kind of all personal theories. Like, these aren't... personality theory hasn't really been hard science. It hasn't really been... it's extremely hard to test. You have to go into neuroscience to test these theories, and obviously we can't really do that right now. And Carlos Jung didn't do that. He did like interviews with people, like countless people. That's how he did it. But it's obviously it's not a very precise measure. So I hope this helped you, and see you next time.